PowerPlay Chess, brought to you in association with Kagi. I'm continuing my last round report on the Tata Steel Masters with the game Vincent Keymer against Rameshbabu Praggnanandhaa. Now, if you haven't seen Gukesh Erigaisi yet, well, do check out my video on that one. All I can say is, I don't want to spoil it too much if you haven't seen that yet. All I can say is that Pragg, well, oh heck, I'm going to spoil it. If you don't want to know the result of that game, look away now, as they say, or you can pause the video. Basically, Gukesh lost. So Pragg, and he lost that game quite quickly. So Pragg knew that he just needed a draw in his game to win the tournament. Right, let's see what happened. So he had black against Vincent Keymer. Now, this was a very long game. 80 moves long, and I'm not going to show you all 80 moves. I'm sorry if that disappoints some of you. But I'm just going to leap to a couple of important positions. So this is the first important position. Pragg playing black, Caro-Kann, and Keymer plays h3 and claims the bishop pair. Well, that's not necessarily significant because Pragg has built a nice solid fortress of pawns there. So how does that bishop get through? Well, okay, let me zip through the next few moves very, very quickly. d4. That's a significant change in the structure. What happens? Because here you can see with that pawn on d4, it gives the knight access to c4, and that's a very nice square. Of course, black does not have a light squared bishop. And now we've got a fixed structure. So it's almost a bit like a kind of reversed King's Indian. This knight gets booted back. And this was a very nice move. Because Keymer realizes, actually, that bishop isn't so important. And the knight comes back here. b4, an important move, which takes away this square. e5. Now, you can see the pawns were on light squares here, which shuts out that bishop. But now they've moved to dark squares. Okay, so fixed pawn structure. When the structure is fixed, that makes it easier for us to determine where our pieces belong. And I'm going to just leap to this position very quickly. So all the rooks have been exchanged. Now, some of you will know about my Kalashnikov course for Chessable, and there's a book as well where I talk about the bad bishop bounce. So in the Kalashnikov, it's that bishop that comes often from e7, maybe f6, and bounces off the back rank via d8 to b6. There isn't a pawn on d4, but often you can get an attack on f2. So this is a very similar case. This bishop is doing nothing. So what we need to do is just redeploy that bishop to a better diagonal. Now that's a pretty good bad bishop bounce, putting it on h3. Nice diagonal. But this one is even better. That bishop wants to reach this diagonal and target the f7 pawn. And that's the story of this game. So let me just go on a few more moves. And you can see what happens. There we go. Bishop b3. That bishop has reached this crucial diagonal. And that is a constant problem for black. Because this bishop on b3 has no opponent, then it's impossible for black to alleviate the pressure on f7. You need to be able to play a bishop to e6 to neutralize that bishop. You simply can't do that. And this is a nightmare position for Pragg. Basically, only two results possible from here. Either Keymer wins or Pragg makes a draw. But it's hard work. Yes, if this pawn is taken, then queen c5, that queen is creeping in. The knight is hit, this pawn is hit, and if the knight comes back here, then there's bishop d5, so that's impossible. So knight takes b4, gets rid of that bishop. That dark square bishop isn't so important, actually. Knight f3. So it's a very simplified position, but black just has to sit passively. That pawn on b5 is dropping. And little by little, Keymer just creeps in. Very nice move, h5. So that means the king is really restricted now. If white ever does break through, then it's not going to be able to escape via g6. And it means that g6 is prevented. You know, if black could play g6 and king g7, things would improve a little bit. But it's like the king is permanently stuck now. And knight h4, of course. You know, the knight moves in. And this is starting to look really nasty. And little by little, the queen creeps in. Great thing about this, when you're playing white, is that you don't have to commit. You can just poke and probe, slowly improving the position of your pieces, and you can always reset. If something doesn't work, you just reset, basically. I was going to say, just got to make sure you don't exchange queens. Even with a queen exchange, there might be possibilities to win this, but obviously it's for the best to try and keep the queens on the board, because it's going to give you mating chances. So let me flick through these moves. King g2, very tidy. That's nice. So again, absolutely no counterplay. Notice everything is protected. So black can do nothing active. So finally, after lots of shuffling, bit of repetition, doesn't matter though, Keymer has thought things through. This is move 52, I should say. And he goes for it. Knight f3. So he's brought the queen to a superb position. Both queen and bishop attacking f7. The knight defends it, but the knight on f3 is going to knock out that knight. And if knight f3, then bishop takes f7 check. And, well, a very strong attack after that. So queen f8 defends this pawn. And an exchange on g5. And bishop takes f7. So not a difficult tactic. Of course, if queen takes d6. Sometimes queen and pawn endgames can be very tricky, but not this one. The queen, well, this pawn is threatened for a start, and if queen e8, queen g6. Pawn endgame is going to be winning, and then if black declines to exchange queens, then h6, and yeah, basically you can force an exchange of queens and you have an extra pawn. So king h8, and once again, it's the story is about this bishop. The combination of queen and bishop are deadly. This king simply cannot escape, and it's just a wonderful attack that white has here. Even the pure opposite colour bishop endgame with an exchange of queens might well be winning for white because black's king is so poorly placed. But there's no need to test that theory. Of course, you want to keep that queen on the board because they're such a lethal attacking combination. So again, there's a lot of shuffling, and well, this is one of the great rules when you have such a dominating position. Basically, let your opponent sweat. There is no need to rush it. So little by little, Keymer improves his position. He's played this game excellently. And the king creeps forward because he might be able to exchange queens, and then the king will come in, maybe create a passed pawn. As long as this king stays out of range, can't reach the center. So queen e7, and finally, Keymer goes for the break. He plays f4. He's had time to calculate this one through. An exchange. If e takes, then e5 is actually very strong. White is going to break through there. So queen d6, trying to hold that e5 point. But Keymer plays really well. Bishop c4. So that makes room for the queen to come down here. If pawn takes pawn, e5 is absolutely decisive. At the moment, if there's a check, then queen d8. But e5 just disturbs black's defense because queen e5 now impossible to block on the back rank, and that's mate. And yeah, bishop takes, same thing. So queen b8 by Pragg. Bishop d5. That's a very interesting waiting move from Keymer. If queen d6, then again, that just disturbs black's defense. So e takes f4. Incredibly, Keymer now makes a mistake. e5. And Pragg now had a chance. In fact, queen e6 is a winning move. Let me just show you this very quickly. If queen d8, king f3 is a beautiful move actually. Just making sure the king is safe. That queen can't move off the back rank because of a mate. So black has virtually nothing to do. And now h6, and this is a killer. Watch. Check, and the bishop drops on h4. Queen e6 is winning. e5 is such a beautiful move. Another pawn sack. In fact, with best play, it should be a draw. Okay, so once again, queen takes allows mate on the back rank. So bishop takes. Bishop e4, and this is a wonderful sacrifice. Very positional, creating room for the bishop, threatening mate. King g8, so this is the game continuation. Check. Don't come here because I think that one is fatal. So king h8, queen g6. A check. Bishop f5. So that defends h7 and king f3. So a beautiful idea, beautiful move, just tucking the king back. And black is very short of moves here. Bishop e4. It feels like a Zugzwang position. The queen can't move. This pawn is blocked. This pawn obviously blocked. These pawns blocked. So the only thing that black can do is move the bishop. Now maybe it's too much to ask that at the end of a very long game, this is move 76, and you're short of time, that you can defend this position. It's very hard. There's no real logic behind these moves. But basically bishop e5 was played and that loses. Pragg should have played bishop e7, but I mean this is very hard to determine that this is a draw. And after h6, well, you have to chuck the bishop a long way away to make sure it doesn't get lost. And apparently there is no way through here, and the king can escape. But bishop e5 played instead, which looks logical somehow. Bishop h6 in this case is really strong. Now, Keymer's next move is sublime. In fact, you can win by taking on g7 with the pawn. But Keymer's move is so beautiful. This is exquisite. Okay, I'll give you a chance to spot it. White to play. So this is winning, but there's something that's just beautiful. Queen g5. Okay, why is this a winning move? Well, in fact, this is Zugzwang. So wherever black moves now, he compromises his position. Pragg is now lost. So let's go through the options. Bishop c7. So that bishop is now unprotected. An exchange. Okay, now it's protected again, but it's on a very unfortunate square. Okay, these moves are forced. Now the bishop is unprotected. And queen d7. Check. And then you take the bishop with a winning position. Okay, what about bishop d6? Now we're going to see why that queen moved, step back to this diagonal. And now queen h4 check. So the king goes to g8, bishop d5, king f8, queen d8. So the bishop is not on c7, it's on d6. So this is checkmate. Wow, beautiful. And this next one, this is great. So what about g6? Queen e7, it's Zugzwang. Black has no good move here. The bishop doesn't have any decent move. And if g5, that's mate next move because the pawn has advanced and now the king can't step forward to h7. So that position is Zugzwang. I mean, that's just stunning. Okay, what about the game continuation? Pragg played queen f8. An exchange on g7. Queen h4, that's that beautiful move again. That's why Keymer stepped back to g5. And here Pragg resigned, because if king g8, a check. And queen d8. Checkmate. Wow. Yes, there was a slight inaccuracy there right at the end of the game, but incredibly difficult to find the draw. And I think Keymer actually played that endgame beautifully. There's some wonderful concepts there. So that loss meant that Pragg could not overtake Gukesh, so they shared first place. So if we have a look at the standings, after 13 rounds, Gukesh and Praggnanandhaa on 8.5. Abdusattorov could only draw. He finished on 8. Incredible. He would have had a chance. So Gukesh and Praggnanandhaa went to a blitz tiebreak. Frankly, I don't want to look at those games. They were quite a spectacle, but both players were exhausted and the games were decided just on tactical blunders mainly. Gukesh won the first, Pragg won the second, and then there was a ludicrous third game that Pragg won. There were, horrible piece blunder by Gukesh. So Praggnanandhaa is the winner of the Tata Steel Masters 2025. Gukesh did incredibly well, and I think he deserves kind of equal praise, really. I mean, they both had a fantastic tournament, as did Abdusattorov. So really, those three made the running. Gukesh, Praggnanandhaa and Abdusattorov. All wonderful players and really young. It's quite clear the younger generation has come through. Caruana, 32 years old. I'm afraid his tournament was a bit of a failure. Geary, apparently he was ill. So he had a tough time, only made +1. But it was a thrilling tournament, as ever. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed my coverage. And if you want to see more on the PowerPlay Chess channel, then do hit that subscribe button. If you want to support the channel, then do check out patreon.com/PowerPlayChess. Thanks for watching.